Okay. So, oh God, first of all, I'm going to say I don't have a clue as to what I'm really going to say here. And I've had many, 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 many thoughts about this because, quite frankly, alcoholism has affected my life from day one. I'll just say that. And I made it wrong from day one. So with that being said, I'll just say that was my projection, making alcoholism wrong. All right. Now, with that being said, if any that are watching this YouTube have a problem with alcohol or drugs or, a problem in that arena of addiction as the horizontal world sees it, AA is a great way to go. Okay. I was in AA for 18 years. and I went into AA and I finally got very honest with myself. It wasn't because I had an active problem with alcohol. I went into AA because I was terrified I'd turn out like my dad, okay, which is basically hating alcoholism. Okay, so let's just get clear. Hating alcoholism is not loving, period. Not loving. And so, and this conversation is going to be based on my parable, but really, the only way to do this is through guidance. That's the only way I know for this. And this is where we have to hear our own guidance. Now, okay, I think I was about 20 when I got into AA. And again, I say it was based on my absolute utter terror that I'd turn out like my father and his father and, lineages of alcoholics. I'm Irish. Not that all Irish are alcoholics, but we come from a particular lineage of alcoholic Irish. So it disturbed me from the very beginning, because for me, when my father drank, he disappeared. Okay. He was completely distracted. And that's a word that's an ACIM term. Anything that takes us away from God is a distraction. And I know David Hoffmeister has said this many times. We have an addiction to thinking. And so I really want you to see, even though if you feel your issue is, you can't hear the bombs? Okay, wow. Let me get back in my thinking here. Okay, any distraction takes you out of the game. And a distraction can be called alcoholism, or I want to move somewhere else, or the noise is driving me crazy, or I really hate my next door neighbor, or you get the picture, okay? Those are distractions. They're also projections. So we project what we really can't deal with, and if we can't deal with it, it's just easier to put it out there. Then we don't have to deal with it. It's their problem. Now, if you have an alcoholic in the family, you have to get healed. Or even with cancer or illness, I deal with this all the time. People call me, oh, my, familiar got cancer. And what can they do? And I said, well, I don't know what they can do, but I know what you can do. And deal with your fear about cancer. It's the same thing with alcoholism or addiction. I don't know what the alcoholic or the addict is going to do, but I say deal with your fear of alcoholism or addiction. And again, and I may say this a lot because I know there are going to be people watching this on YouTube that might have issues around alcoholism or drug addiction. AA or NA is the way to go, because some people get so far away from God, so deep into distractionville, they need something to bring them back into the world of God. And that's where NA and AA and all those 12-step programs are very helpful, because they're very much based on God. And the only way out of a distraction is through God. It's the only way. I wish it were simpler, but there isn't any simple way out of this. Now, at some point, and again, I think I took an 18-year chip with AA, and then I realized it was not what I was needing any longer. And I had to move on, because at some point, after there is no issues around addiction or alcoholism, you've got to stop making yourself bad and wrong for being an addict or an alcoholic. And that's when you have to move, because alcoholism, NA, at least AA for me, well, you know, every meeting you'd go into is, hi, I'm Calico and I'm an alcoholic, which is just saying, hi, I'm broken. And you say that every meeting, and it's not helpful, because what we really need to heal here is our addiction to seeing ourselves as broken in any way, shape, or form. So, you know, and it's so funny. It's, again, this is the parable of Calico, and all I can say is it all fits together in this beautiful parable called Calico. But I went to Africa in 71 and went to feed the homeless. Okay, that was my major distraction at the time. I'm going to feed the homeless. I'm gonna help. I'm gonna serve. I'm gonna extend. So I took off to Africa, found an NGO that would take me on, and I went up to Somalia to feed people. Oh, there you go, Hannah. This is for you. This is your topic. So I went to Africa for 6 months. Oh God. And I was journaling at the time, and one thing that I wrote over and over and over again is, Dorothy, you're no longer in Kansas. And it really put me into a position of, oh, none of this is comfortable. I've never seen anything like this. What the hell am I doing here? And it just went on and on and on that way. And then I came back, and I was completely at my wit's end. And I was still going to AA meetings at the time. And I go into an AA meeting. And this is after seeing some of the worst stuff you could ever imagine seeing in your life. Okay. And I go into an AA meeting and hear these grown men and women saying, oh, I'm so upset that I still think I need a drink, and I can't help that my life is a mess right now because I have this desire to drink. And quite frankly, I couldn't even hear it. And again, it goes back to, if you remember, I had a huge issue with hearing complaints. And so I'm thinking, you know, there are people living under a blue piece of plastic, and they're living off a half a cup of flour a week, and you have a roof over your head and a car to drive and families, this, that, and you're complaining. Okay, so I had some issues with it. And again, I hadn't gotten in touch with my issue around complaints at the time, But I had to move out of AA, which was a good thing. I needed to move out of AA. And that's really when A Course in Miracles came into my life. And then I allowed it to take me deeper, because by, thank God, by 17 years, I was able to say I had a relationship with God. And then it took me into a new direction with God. And it wasn't about me being broken. It was about me finally seeing, or at least hearing, I'm perfect. I didn't understand it at the time, but they were telling me, you're perfect. I'm going, okay, I'll buy it for now, but I'm not really believing it. And life continued until now I really totally get it. This whole, and it's distractions. If you can see alcoholism as a distraction, whether you're the alcoholic or you're the lover of an alcoholic, it's the same thing. It takes your mind out of the game. It's a chronic complaint. And I'm just introducing a new chronic complaint to replace all the other projected complaints that you have. And this chronic complaint should be, I don't know how to think. I really don't know how to think. Because remember, we're attempting to change it, flip side of the coin, from everything from projection, how we perceive the world. The world has alcoholics and non-alcoholics, addicts and non-addicts. To the truth, we're all love. Period. There is no distinctions. There are no separations. And we learned how to think from this one side of the coin, our perception. For me, from day one, Dad's an alcoholic, and that's a problem. And that continued to be a chronic complaint until I stopped making it a chronic complaint. And I know I've said this before, but this is the perfect time to say it again. I had no relationship with my father for 10 years. We didn't speak. And I every now and then I'd get because I wanted a relationship with him. I really loved him. And I'd call him up and he'd hang up on me. And so it was like, okay, how am I going to form a relationship with someone that just hangs up on me? And I was in a particular program at the time, and I asked the leadership there, can you help me? I don't know what to do with this. Because their whole thing was, you have to heal with your mother and father. You have to. There is no way to move into this world of awakening without dealing with your mother and father. You got to. So, and the response to me was, well, you're going to have to be creative, aren't you? And I was like, oh, shit, what the hell does that mean? And so I sat with it for a long time. And the way I handled it, and again, I was hearing guidance, but at the time I would never have called that. It was just, I had this bright idea. It's like, I really did want a relationship with this man I called my father, my birth father. And I needed to be nicer to him because I was very hard on him. I was hard on him. I didn't have a whole lot of nice things to say about him, so I didn't talk about him much. That's the way I handled it. But in this program, the leadership was very clear. You have to make peace with your parents. And I knew that wasn't peace. I mean, come on, you just don't want to talk about them as not making peace. So I started sending him a card a month, a loving card of just, and I had to really stretch when I wrote these cards out, because in every card I had to come up with one event that we had a good time together. And this was stretching it, because initially I thought, I'm not going to be able to come up with one, let alone 12 for a year. And so every month I had to go into, now what I see is deep contemplation of, why do you love your father? What is it about your father that you love? And then I'd write something down, and sometimes it was really stupid. It was like, my father, when he'd take care of us, he'd put mayonnaise on hamburgers. And it wasn't my thing. But he always did not put the mayonnaise on my hamburger. He'd put it on everybody else's, but not mine. Okay, so that's where I started from. It was like little tiny things that he was showing as much love as he could in that very moment. And I acknowledged it in these cards. So it went on for about 10 years. Every month I'd send him a card, and no communication other than that. And then my mom called, your father's dying, went in, all that. And then he passed away. And my mom and I were cleaning out his closet. And I just thought, man, Mom, did he ever say anything about those cards I mailed him? And she said, he never talked about it, but he'd always put the new card up on his night table, replacing the old card. So for 10 years, every month, he would put me on his nightstand. So I know we had a beautiful relationship. Absolutely no conversation. Not a word was spoken. We did not see each other, but it was a complete loving relationship. And so with alcoholism and addiction, and again, replace the addiction to what are you placing above healing with God? So it could be noise. Noise could be that distraction. And this is where we have to stop in contemplation and go, okay, it is really noisy. It's driving me nuts. I want to kill them. And just stopping. Praying, Holy Spirit, help me see this differently. Holy Spirit, help me see how really addressing this complaint can save me. It can make me see how loving I am. And this is with whatever is your distraction. We all have them. This is, the whole thinking from perception, eyes, ears, nose, all of that, thinking from perception and making just judgments on the perception, whether, they're an alcoholic. What we're doing, switching to the truth. Their love, I'm love. How can we join there without forming this barrier? Oh, I can't love them, they're an alcoholic. I can't love them because they're an addict. I can't love them because they're making too much noise. I can't love them because I'm not okay with myself. Okay, whatever our form of distraction is, we talked about self-help. That's a distraction. If I can make myself perfect, and once I'm better, then life will begin. It's like, no, life begins right now in this moment of just seeing I don't have to make these excuses anymore. I don't have to make the excuses that the alcoholic is keeping me from having a life that I love, that I'm not good enough yet, and that's going to keep me from a life that I love, that there's too much noise and that'll keep me from having a life that I love. We've got to stop that insanity. And the way we stop it is in the moment we have the thought, oh my God, they're drinking again. Stop. Holy Spirit, help me see that thought differently. Or the thought, oh my God, will they ever shut up? Stop. Holy Spirit, help me see what I'm to learn from this and start loving them. Okay? So it really, alcoholism and addiction, it deals with all of it. And again, if you're watching this and you happen to have a problem, or you think you have a problem with alcohol, go to AA. It's a safe, easy place to start healing. Because again, once you get lost in distractions, and it doesn't have to be just alcoholism, it can be finding a relationship or making more money, or I want the perfect house. Those are distractions that you can lose yourself in. And then once you're deep enough in the distraction, you can't hear God. So you have to start filling the grave in, like I like to say. Start filling in the grave. Quit digging it deeper. And the way you do that is with every single little thought. Oh, I'm not good enough. Stop. That's a thought. Holy Spirit, that's not a helpful thought. Help me see this differently. Or, oh my God, they're drinking again. Stop. Holy Spirit, help me see them differently so that I can live a life that I love. And it means consistency, and it means watching your thoughts like a hawk. Any complaint, and it doesn't matter. It's just that, I know alcoholism, and yet I wasn't trained to just love my dad, because my mom had the complaint of he's drunk. And so I learned how to not love my dad early on. And I continued it on. It was, it was like, then I was out of the house and living on my own, and I still had that complaint of my dad's an alcoholic. Life was a bitch. And I had to get rid of all that. And I had to get rid of it one thought at a time. And as that thought crossed my mind, stop. Holy Spirit, help me see this differently. And this is what I want to say also. It's the power of prayer. I can't say that enough. If you're not having miraculous things happen, what I say is you're probably not praying. You're not stopping those thoughts. You're letting them keep going. And that's never going to be helpful. And you'll get trapped in distraction land again. And that you will suffer. And I want to read this from chapter 2, The Altar of God, I think it's called. And I know this will sound familiar to many. Tolerance for pain may be high, but it is not without limit. So if you're suffering from some chronic complaint, I'm not good enough, I'm living with an alcoholic, or I'm an alcoholic, that's pain. Those are painful thoughts. Tolerance for pain may be high, but it is not without limit. Eventually, everyone begins to recognize, however dimly, that there must be a better way. As this recognition becomes more firmly established, it becomes a turning point. The more you recognize that you're having these distracting thoughts regularly, it will, if you can stay conscious, it'll become a turning point. This ultimately reawakens spiritual vision. Remember, not through perception, through the truth of love. Same coin, just completely opposite sides. So as this recognition becomes more firmly established, it becomes a turning point. This ultimately reawakens spiritual vision, simultaneously weakening the investment in physical sight. So our dependence on perception, physical sight, they're an alcoholic and they're assholes, or next door neighbors are making noise, or I'm not good enough, I need to get better. All that's on perception land. If you keep doing this, praying for help, there's a turning point. And this ultimately reawakens spiritual vision, simultaneously weakening the investment in physical sight, perception land. The alternating investment in the two levels of perception is usually experienced as conflict, which can become very acute. This conflict is, no, but they're wrong. They're making too much noise, or they're drinking again. That's conflict, and it can get pretty painful. I guarantee it. I know. And that's where tears might need to be shed. A lot of them. Just let them go. Just don't reproject them onto, poor me, my life doesn't work because I'm living with an alcoholic. Or poor me, my life doesn't work because my next door neighbors are noisy. Or poor me, my life doesn't work because I'm around angry people all the time. Okay, the alternating investment in the two levels of perception is usually experienced as conflict, which can become very acute. But the outcome is as certain as God. So if you stick with this, with every single thought, Holy Spirit, help me see this differently. Holy Spirit, I need help. I don't know what the lesson is here. Holy Spirit, what am I to learn with this? You know, the prayers can be pretty simple. The outcome is as certain as God, but you got to rely on God and turn to God with every single thought that somehow your life isn't working. And this is big. It's all I can say. It's big. It's a huge shift, and it requires 100% commitment on our part. Really. There's no other way around it. And my heart prays that everyone can see this eventually, because there's no reason to suffer anymore. We've spent too much of our lives suffering. I know I have. I'm done. Can't do that. It hurts too much. And, I just think of my father, and my mother. I was having thoughts of her too. Just briefly, this could be a whole different topic, but, she had no tools. My parents didn't have any tools. None. Absolutely none. God bless them. They really did do the best they could with no tools. And so my mother saw she was raising an angry daughter. Now, she couldn't do anything about the raging alcoholic, but her advice to me was, well, just stop being angry. And that would just make me angrier. It's like stop the sun from shining or stop the rain from coming. I couldn't. But then I was given A Course in Miracles. And I guarantee every question I've ever had has the answer in that text. Jesus filled it up just for us. And so, yeah, tolerance may be high, but it is not without limit. And we set when we're ready to stop the painful insanity. We each do this for ourselves. And I just say, don't wait, do it now. And the way you do it now is just with every single thought. Every single thought. Oh my God, gluten's going to make me throw up again. Stop. Holy Spirit, that's not a helpful thought. Oh, sugar, it's going to make me fat. Stop. Not a helpful thought. Any thought, any complaint. And it's intense That's when you start seeing what you're thinking, and it's intense. And I know Jody's been going through this for a few months now. It's intense. It's kind of like, just stop. Holy Spirit. Oh my God. I'm so exhausted with telling myself the same story and feeling miserable. That's not helpful. Okay. So with that, I know I ran over a little bit. Let's hang on. I just stop. Bye, YouTube people.